Birthday boy didn't shave. Okay, starting there. Give me dinner day before Craig's birthday. Beltane. All right, hold that for a second. And we have a little discussion here. And tonight we're going to go through some of the 4 foundations. And we were talking about boron. So we'll start with that. Huh? No, announcement comes first. Announcement first. Natural law. We'll talk about this a little bit. What is natural law? What is the order of the universe? So I have a group that meets, Monica and Gina, and we meet on Wednesdays, and this is the deeper group doing health assessment and maybe become practitioners or maybe be a self-practitioner. But then there's another group that I've been putting teasers out there for common law, and I realized common law isn't going to do it for me to teach because I don't know that much about common law. But what I can teach is the order of the universe. And so there's a web page for this, personalalchemy.weebly.com. And Weebly, I got to pay the money to, I got a free website, so that you put the .weebly.com and let you have it for free. And that group is going to meet 20 times. There's going to be 10 common law classes, 7 health classes, because you have to be healthy to be able to be clear about the law and your own law, and then 3 classes tying it all together with case studies. And so David and Bernie, I think that they want to join, and we want to have someone that's coming in and out of it. I have Greg Paul over in Scotland, the common law expert over there. He calls it the laws of I, lowercase. So Greg Paul says common law is even another title. The laws of I in lowercase is what Greg Paul calls his system. Or Zoom, one or the other. You can do both. We're going to have a camera on me and then, or on the Zoom, and then so people can Zoom attend, or maybe we'll have it on the screen. I don't know yet. It's sort of I'm a sort of a guy, I just throw it out there and then let the people deal with the details later. I'm content heavy, so Monica and Jean know this about me. I'll just throw something out there. It's like, what about the details? I don't know, just make it happen. We'll make it happen somehow. The webpage has, so let's go there real quick. Screen share for the audience. So I'll give you a little teaser because the syllabus is quite fun. It'll be Tuesdays 7 to 9 starting on May 25th. Wait, May 25th, 7 p.m. It'll run for 20 weeks. And then hopefully it'll just repeat. Okay, natural law group. So we're going there. And you know what? You guys will give me feedback too. So here's the syllabus. The natural law, the first class is fear and the soul. Second class, claiming our power. Third class and 4th class, understanding the game, parts 1 and 2. Class 5, unraveling the layers. Class 6, notice writing. Class 7, confronting authority. Class 8, unraveling the layers, part 2. Class 9, notice writing, part 2, and class 10, tying it all together. Then we go to health. First class, who are you? Who is the thinker? Who judges? Who lives in this body? What is health? Why is it primary to all else in life? Health is primary. If you don't have healthy, you don't have shit. You don't have health and clarity, you ain't got nothing. I learned that when I broke my neck long ago. Second class is the other. So I'm the me and you're the others, and I'm the other and you're the me, right? So what about these others? How do we deal with them? Third class is on the relationship. What Robert, anybody you know Robert Johnson, his work? Oh yeah. Yeah, so Robert Johnson has a book called He, She, and We. Yeah, we, owning your own shadow is another one. That's a great one. Owning your own shadow. And that's where I kind of came up with this you, the other, and the we. So understanding relationships, is this a relationship I'm floundering in because of cultural mores, because of societal, because of personal, family? There's a little quadrant for each of these. And so you get to see where your trigger is. Oh, it's actually a family trigger from age 3 when this happened. And then the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th classes are each of the 4 health foundations. And the final 3 are the larger view and its relationships. So the first class of that is nature and its order. The second class is how the universe unfolds through human and other beings. And the third class is how can we improve our quality of life? What things are unique to us as individuals? And what common patterns do we share in our process of growth and living? The webpage has some cute pictures, but I don't think it's quite done. Some of you people might look at it and go, why don't you do this or do that? And give me some feedback. Or anybody watching this, as a matter of fact. I get these spammers on YouTube. As soon as I post it, this person will always post a little URL as a comment. Oh, yeah. You know, and I'm like, it's so irritating. Yeah. Whoever you are, stop that. It's probably a bot, you know. This is personalalchemy.weebly.com. I'll put it in the description to the recording on this video too. You want to just hold that, Monica? I know, I was just trying to add variety. It was a bad idea, but I'm full of bad ideas. I'm full of bad ideas. I can do it. And the next other announcement is the next cleanse will be June 18th. If you want to gear up for that, I would love to have some group fasting where we support each other. We were going to try for the spring cleanse, but I was in no position to lead a fast. So in June, you know, we could have really foggy cold weather and not want to do raw. And we could have really warm weather. You don't know. Yeah. And then the final announcement was Monday gardening. If like Will came by last Monday and he kind of called me the day of, which doesn't work for me because I generally need to know a day ahead of time. So it's like, hey, I want to come over to Craig's house. Just give me a couple of days notice. We'll line up a time. And Will walked out of here with like 12 plants because there's just stuff. I just can't believe how fast everything's growing. So I have, because of what you guys help, because of you guys, there's so many plants coming up there. This is the biodynamic John Jeevons. That was his gardening method, was you just cram as many plants in a bed as you can and they'll just grow vertical. And I don't know if Alan Chadwick worked with this dude, the biodynamic dude. He was up in Northern California, but I think they probably knew each other. I never knew Alan. I just know this one guy from my early permaculture skills about 25 years ago. So when you farm intensively like that, though, you've got to give the soil a rest break with the clover and the peas and the vetch and the fava and all that. Great. Because, you know, most of our atmosphere is nitrogen. And that's one of the great secrets of life on Earth is those plants. They take nitrogen out of the air and fix it down into the root nodules. So if you look at these nitrogen fixing plants, you'll see these little white nodules on the root. And that's where it's fixing the nitrogen and putting it back into the soil. And you know NPK ratios, right? When you're gardening, that's where you get your nitrogen for free. Kind of cool. Okay, announcement's done. Anybody else have an announcement? I was just saying Mondays it's loose. You know, I don't have a set Monday, especially next Monday. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be out of town. Finally. You want to know from people by when? 24 hours, usually minimum. So calling on Sunday, voicemail. Sure. Well, in your case, you better make sure you get a hold of me because I still don't have your voicemail from earlier. Didn't even go through yet. Okay, so texting, some way, yeah. Make sure you get it confirmed, yeah. And then at some point we'll have somebody just running that's not me. That could just be here, you know, and we'll say this part of the garden is just dig it up, take whatever you want. But there's a lot of excess out there right now. And what's interesting about plants is you could see it as competition to get up to the light. But I don't see it as competition. After 25 years, they're cooperating to get the most light on the most amount of plants at the same time. It's the opposite of humans. You know, it's like, hey, how can I accommodate you? I'll grow over here, and then you can grow right here, because they all are trying to get to that light, right? They're all growing up. And it was probably a man that said that too. Yeah. Probably a man. About that. I mean, a whole committee. Oh yes, we now know this. You guys ever read The Chalice and the Blade, Rihanna? Oh my God! I mean, isn't that a great book? Yeah. Did you really? What a great read! Great book. But you know, the masculine got a little pissy. What are all these women running stuff? God darn feminine women! I'm going to start talking shit about the women. But that goes in with the Kali Yuga. It was planned to be that way. You know, it was planned for humans to go down into the cycle of darkness because, you know, we're out of the photon zone. Now we're back in it. And so, yeah, Barbara Marciniak has a good stuff about the photon zone. Alrighty, back off the calendar. So boron. me get the periodic table up here. So the best article I think on boron, if you go to, even Google has, if you type in Walter Last, L-A-S-T, Last, the Borax conspiracy, you'll get 25 hits. So I have the PDF up right now. It's a 7-page infiniteunknown.net. You'll love that. The Borax conspiracy.pdf. So boron, if you look at the periodic table, like we were talking about earlier, it's in the same vertical category as aluminum. And generally, when you see the same vertical category, those elements might replace each other, like the halogen vertical column. So iodine, chlorine, bromine, and fluorine are all interchangeable to some degree. And the people in control of the world, again, I believe that they've purposely put us down this primrose path with all, and perchlorates, which is a it's an insecticide or a herbicide they put on lettuce in the West. So they spray that out of the plains and perchlorate, chlorine, get it? So it blocks iodine absorption. And you can't make thyroid hormone effectively. And the RDA for thyroid for iodine is already so low, it's just high enough so you can function as a retard. And I'm not going to excuse that language either. I'm not here to be PC tonight. So you'll be retarded. And that's what they've done to us, right? Yeah. I had a client, he's been on, he's an asthmatic, and for 7 years, and guess he's definitely geoengineering aware. He posts on Facebook about it, pictures, and he came in yesterday, and he's been on prednisone off and on for 7 years. And I told him, I go, he's gained about 30 pounds. He's got the hypothyroid face. I told him right away. He's that kind of friend. I go, you got a hypothyroid face, dude. You're all puffy and edemic. And it's a prednisone, but you can't breathe. And you know, any of you ever have an asthma attack? It's terrifying, isn't it? It's terrifying. So you can't get a breath. And so if you can beat the first asthma attack, I was taught, you can teach yourself to calm down when the spasm comes. And in the chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders, the COPDs, what they all share in common is the tissues have gone too alkaline, and the relaxing mineral magnesium precipitates out of the alveoli and they cramp up. So it's imperative. I've been watching the root cause protocol again. I watched the whole magnesium webinar, an hour long, over the course of this week. Every single ATP reaction in our body is run by magnesium. So his whole protocol is based on, you've got to get your magnesium and you got to start getting it in, you got to start loading it up. And you don't want to do where I'm doing, which I went to 900 milligrams from 300 in 1 day. I had liquid bowels for 3 days. What you want to do is go from 100 to 200 to 300 to 400 to 500 to 600 to 700 to 800 to 900 or 1,000 over the course of a month or more. And that's what he suggests. Because if you're not getting magnesium in your body, then your red blood cells aren't getting oxygen delivered onto them. It's an essential mineral cofactor on all these enzymes that load oxygen onto the red blood cell. People wonder why they're always tired. He cited 2 books I can get you guys. One was The Magnesium Miracle. Carolyn Dean. Is that it? Carolyn Dean, The Magnesium Miracle. Is that it? Is that what it was? And there was one other one he cited, and these are like magnesium researchers. So this is all on PubMed. It's all on NIH. It's all in the research, and that's what Morley Robbins of the Root Cause Protocol. I should get paid for talking this guy up, but he's spent 20 to 25 years devoted. He says he spends 2 or 3 hours in a coffee shop every morning studying this stuff. And he has this beautiful system called the Root Cause Protocol. And the synthetic supplements are all off the list. And I didn't know why, but so I got all the explanations about the forms of magnesium. There's more forms of magnesium than I thought that they do allow in the system, but citrate is out. Citric acid stops that, the inability of the body to get the oxygen onto the red blood cell. It blocks this one enzyme, citric acid does. Ideally, you're getting your magnesium from chlorophyll, because you can measure serum magnesium in your blood, but you can also measure red blood cell magnesium, and that's where it's more important. So, you know, I was reading, there was another book long ago about the copper zinc thing. I don't remember who wrote that book, Why Am I Always So Tired? And it was the copper zinc balance. It's one of those hot shot lady doctors 15, 20 years ago. God, it was a great book, but I had it half right. Yes, you want a proper zinc copper balance. What happens is copper, we have toxic forms of copper in our body. We want to get that out and add in these soluble forms of copper. So the talk, you know, that a lot of our plumbing is copper pipes. You don't want that kind of copper in your body. Just like cast iron pans, you don't want that form of iron in your body. So it's the more important elements that I've discovered. Oxidative stress starts with the mismanagement of iron and oxygen. So all stress in our body, because we have a magnesium burn rate. When we get stressed, we burn magnesium because we have more reactions, right? From more enzymes running because we're stressed. So that means the more stressed we are, the more magnesium we need. And then copper goes out of balance because why? We're chelating it out. We're chelating copper with ascorbic acid, with vitamin D3, with zinc, with iron supplements, iron oxide supplements. Here's this whole list, and you got to get off all that stuff. And vitamin C is indicated, but whole food form, not ascorbic acid. Molybdenum, that chelates copper out too. So if you have toxic forms of copper, you can do those chelators and add in healthy copper in the meantime. That's one of my strategies. It's like calcium. If I see high hair calcium on a hair mineral analysis, it means you're armored. Calcium is part of cement. So if I see high calcium on a hair mineral analysis, it means it's long-term inflammation. Because remember the stages of congestion, we go through inflammation, irritation, then calcification is like 4 steps out of 7. Then after calcification, sort of tissue damage. And there's ways to see that in the sclera. The newer material I've been studying, you'll see you won't see lines in the sclera, you'll see little boxes. And that means calcification. The same thing happens in the iris. You'll see little box grids in the outer part of the iris. So there's ways to see that. So boron, it turns out, helps with all that. Boron helps the solubility of calcium. It helps calcium magnesium balance. It's antifungal, insecticidal. They do say you need about 3 to 5 milligrams a day. How the arthritis cure has been stopped. I'll read a couple blurbs out of this because it's just so dramatic. And you know I like drama. It is difficult to imagine that borax, this humble cleaner and insecticide, has been potential to bring down our economic system single-handedly. Wow, what a sentence. Talk about drama. But you need not worry. The danger has been recognized and the necessary steps are already being taken to diffuse the situation. Mined borax is the source of all manufactured boron compounds. The main deposits are in Turkey and California. The chemical name is sodium disodium tetraborate decahydrate, or simply sodium borate. 4 atoms of boron, 2 sodium atoms, and 10 molecules of crystallized water. Boron is present in all plants and unprocessed foods. And yeah, they say 2 to 5 milligrams a day is generally what we need. But people aren't eating plants. People are eating, crap. And they're eating old plants.
It goes away with heat? Or like
no, it's a mineral, probably not. So it's got antiseptic, antifungal, antiviral properties, but only mild antibacterial. It's essential for the integrity and function of cell walls for the way signals are transmitted across membranes. Let's stop there for a minute. That's one of the things about allergies. And Morley Robbins was talking about histamine like I do the other day. Histamine is a neurotransmitter when we get overly excited. It has neurotransmitter functions. And in the biology of Kundalini, Gina Dixon says histamine is part of the hyperkundalini state where you're rapidly awakening and there's a lot of heat in the body. It's also tied in with dehydration. If you're dehydrated, you'll produce more histamine. So it turns out, though, histamine is very closely related to neurotransmitters. So there's more to histamine than I originally thought. Pretty cool. So the bones in the parathyroid have the most boron in them. But this thing about the cell wall, you can also use something called carbamide, and carbamide related to urine. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So carbamide helps this fluid transfer and it helps lower cell reactivity is my point. So it can help with allergies. So boron could help with allergies, theoretically. Another compound you can use for cell membrane to increase getting stuff through the cell membrane is DMSO, but you've got to use it properly diluted. I've been messing around with that for about 15 years and made clients all itchy doing too strong of a dilution. Like, Craig, how come I'm all itchy? I deal with the St. John's wort oil. I would put it on massage clients and put it on their back and then can't stop itching. It's like, oh, maybe a 2.5% dilution next time. Maybe not a 5%. It didn't itch me. I never make a client a guinea pig, but it's like, I'm good, all right. And the client was like, well, you gotta do more tests on yourself next time. God. I don't like making clients guinea pigs, so usually that's not a good idea. So generally.
Generally.
The other thing that I use in allergy where the person's really reactive and autoimmune is the liver protomorphogen. And they have this product called AF beta food, and it's a lot of beets in it. So I think beets might help with that stagnant bile. That's probably connected with this allergy situation too. I thought that I would add that in because it's just so important to have your cells being able to shit and eat. Because cells shit and cells eat. And a few of you haven't heard this dramatic quote, but I study people that do live blood analysis, Ingrid Naiman specifically, and her quote after 30 years of doing this is, after 30 years of doing live blood cell analysis, I'm convinced that individual cells have individual personalities. Fractal universe. So imagine you're made of trillions of little living critters that have little intelligences. And you're the captain of the bug ship. Hi, I'm Craig. Bug ship Craig over here.
I have a theory that all flesh have that whoosh chicken skin center, that it's probably all of your bugs experiencing what you thought of or felt. It's not like flesh because it's all the bugs feeling.
Right.
Their individual wow.
I like the chicken skin
Maybe
effect.
that's
That
even
was
orgasms. Like all the
trillions of cells orgasming with you at the same time. Wow.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm liking the sound of that.
It certainly is a fun topic.
Cell sex. Cell sex.
Yes, yes.
Cell porn.
With a C, not an S. Not cell with an S.
Cell porn. See what stuff I think of? Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Oh my God, a little cell with a little penis and a little cell with a little vagina.
We couldn't talk just too long.
Oh my God. I'm turning red also, so I better stop.
Yeah, your
Yeah, they're having an orgy right now. Tomorrow's Beltane, for God's sakes, you know? You know? Let's see. Now, this is interesting. Boron deficiency causes the parathyroids to become too overactive, releasing too much parathyroid hormone, which raises the blood levels of calcium. And what does that do? Stones. So boron deficiency is linked to arthritis and stones. That's his next sentence. This leads to arthritis, osteoporosis, and tooth decay. With advancing age, high blood levels of calcium lead to calcification of soft tissues, causing contractions and stiffness, calcification of the thyroid, pineal, ovaries, kidney stones, atherosclerosis, and ultimately leading to kidney failure. Yeah, boron deficiency coupled with magnesium deficiency is especially damaging to bones and teeth. So if you have bad teeth, you got bad bones, and vice versa. And it does regulate the steroid hormones, especially the sex hormones. It increases low testosterone levels in men and estrogen levels in women. It has a role in converting vitamin D to its active form.
Wow.
Boron compounds have anti-tumor properties and are potent anti-osteoporotic, anti-inflammatory, hypolipemic, anticoagulant, and anti-neoplastic agents, end quote. And there was a guy named Dr. Rex Newnham in the 60s, and he's the one that founded all this from, he was a soil and plant scientist. His name is R-E-X, he's a PhD osteopath, naturopath. Last name, here's an interesting one, N-E-W-N-H-A-M, Newnham, but with N-E-W-N, Newnham. What nationality would that be? English? Newnham? Newnham? Wow, look what this guy did. So he had arthritis. He says, it says drugs didn't help him. And he realized the plants in the area were mineral deficient. So he knew that boron aids calcium metabolism, so he started taking 30 milligrams of boron a day, which would be 10 teaspoons, which would be 3 tablespoons
Of the liquid.
of the liquid. Yeah,
Yeah, not
the
of
liquid.
the powder. That's what
So he would go through that bottle pretty quick.
I was surprised that we're not supposed to load it. That we take a little more and more. I would think
That's what I've been doing. And I've been off of it for years. And then James brought it back into my awareness because I've been using his laundry stuff and I just forgot about it. I was like, oh yeah, I got to go back to making my boron solution.
and you can add it back.
Right.
Yeah, foot bath.
Body
You do a
bath.
hair rinse. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
You're supposed to be able to wash your hair with it. I have not successfully done it. That doesn't work yet. Supposedly you-
I've tried it on the fungal toes. I tried putting the straight borax powder on fungal toes. It generally doesn't help.
But probably boron loading would help with the fungal.
Yeah, for sure.
'Cause that's
Um,
internal, right?
So listen to this. Health and medical authorities were not interested in his discovery, but improving arthritis sufferers were delighted. He made tablets containing 3 milligrams of boron, and by word of mouth, he sold 10,000 bottles a month in the 60s. By word of mouth. That's why it became a conspiracy, right? Because he was getting results. It's like
Right.
poor Daniel Smith in the MMS. He is still in prison 3 years later
Wow.
for practicing medicine without a license through a false grand jury. He was selling thousands of bottles. Go to standbydaniel.com. I was on Facebook 3 years ago begging people to help pay for this guy's lawyer fees because the system fucked him so bad. They took his kid away to CPS. They took him away from his wife. Yeah, the FDA tried to sell him out. The pharmaceutical companies tried to buy him out. He kept saying, fuck you. And that's why he's in prison.
So they took it out.
Daniel Smith, you go into the realm of the gods in heaven for standing your truth, brother. He was using MMS. So Bruce Tanner knows the story. Because Bruce and I have some good MMS conversations. So he asked a drug company to market the tablet, which was his biggest mistake, right? You don't ask a drug company, you go do it yourself.
Yeah.
It so happened that representatives on government health committees that arranged in 1981 Australia instituted a regulation which declared boron and its compounds to be poison in any concentrations in 1981. I guess so. He was fined $1,000 for selling poison and then successfully stopped his cure of arthritis in Australia. And he has a citation. Let me see what the citation says. This has been from a newspaper. Oh, and the citation isn't even in here. Come on,
Was
guys.
he basically selling boron water like this?
He's making tablets. Let's see. Let's go through I'll go through the big points. So a couple of big points: osteoporosis and sex hormones. It seems to help with fungi. It helps get fluoride out of the body. Here's one thing about toe fungus. He wet his feet and took a handful of borax and rubbed it all over his feet. He said it stopped the itching immediately. And he said he kept doing that every day, and a month later it was gone. Here it is. Borax, similar to the equally endangered Lugol's solution, which is iodine, can also be used to remove accumulated fluoride and heavy metals from the body. Oh, check this out. In a Chinese study, 300 to 1,100 milligrams of borax a day was used for 3 months to treat 31 patients with skeletal fluorosis. The treatment was very effective. With boron deficiency, too much calcium moves into the cell while calcium cannot displace it. This is the condition of old age and the boron deficiency diseases leading up to it. So it helps that calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus ratio. And there's a nice couple of pages at the end that tells you how to use it, how to make the dilution, and then the toxicity issues. He clearly goes over through the toxicity issues, and it's wonderful that he does that. And he has a couple of pages on the assault on borax by the medical pharmaceutical industry he talks about. I'll just put the link in the description to the video, but this is the infiniteunknown.net. If you just type in Walter Last, the borax
Right.
conspiracy,
Yeah.
that's better. I've been to 5 different links, and they all say the same thing. It's the same article, they just, different people use it. And there's a couple of pages on possible side effects, so that makes it, you know, pretty reputable article. He's the one who originally wrote this, yeah. LAST, last. Like the last known cure. And then there's one on earthclinic.com, borax cures and health benefits. It's a little more, this is more neutral. And it looks like a pretty good article. They claim on the earthclinic.com it helps osteoarthritis, osteoarthritis, bone spurs, calcium deposits, lupus, autoimmune, hormones, fungus, candida, ringworm, tinea versicolor, insomnia, rough skin, and impotence. Earthclinic.com. Studies have found that the incidence of arthritis is lower when daily boron intake is higher than 3 to 10 milligrams. And the study, what's the citation here? It's a PubMed study. Essentiality of boron for healthy bones and joints. 1 teaspoon of that has 3 milligrams. So a tablespoon that, yeah, of the water.
How do you know that?
Because they established that long ago. Remember, this has been around since 65. So they've been studying this for a long time.
3 milligrams.
Yeah.
Boron
Yeah.
water.
One of my clients took a whole teaspoon of that and she had welts all over her body. She was not happy.
Not good.
That's why I told her you didn't follow instructions. It says very clearly to make the dilution and then take a teaspoon of the dilution. It does not say take a teaspoon of the powder.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's it.
Exactly.
It's that
And
simple.
And then what would you say is good loading? 1 teaspoon a day for a couple of weeks and then 2 teaspoons or a teaspoon and a half?
I'm an edge walker. I would increase a teaspoon a day personally, but because I don't mind pushing through stuff faster, but that generally leads to symptoms. Like with MMS and with iodine and all that, I pushed it right up to the edge. I got to 13 drops of MMS and I thought I was going to die.
Good.
Back in the day, I could get to 30 to 35 milligrams of iodine, and then, oh my God, because iodine sort of thins the blood a little bit too. I would just get these horrendous headaches and allergy attacks. Ooh, take your breath away.
Edge walking sounds very painful.
What?
Edge walking sounds very painful.
You want to go slower. So maybe increase by a teaspoon a week.
I'm generally less into pain.
Yeah.
But that's really.
I'm an edge walker. That's my whole life.
But everybody, you remember, you can't put it in a bathtub because your skin's going to absorb it totally differently. And you might as well, if you're trying to get more, do both. And hands or feet. You know,
Same thing with magnesium. Get it on your skin, take it orally, do it in enemas. Well, most of you don't do enemas, but I mean, these
But not
lovely
a lot.
magnesium enemas, you know, with the polarmins, the ocean water. Yeah, you could get, but it's not magnesium oil, by the way. It's just ocean water with the sodium removed, and it feels like oil because it's slippery, but it's just magnesium chloride. It's not oil at all, but it feels like oil. That was good boron stuff. So,
Yeah, I was always told to put boron in my calcium supplement.
okay, so it says if you take a 1/4 teaspoon of boron a day of that, you get a 1/4 teaspoon of that. They're saying if you get to the top of the load, it's a 1/4 teaspoon, and you drink it over the course of a day, you're getting 113 milligrams of boron. Yeah, so the original Walter Lass said doing that and then doing a teaspoon of that morning and night is where you start.
13.
So a 1/4 teaspoon gives you 113 milligrams. And that's what they're saying. That's the top of the load, what they're having people do. You could probably go as much as 10 times more in the bath.
I was told a full cup in a bathtub full of water.
Sounds about right.
And that it's really important for detoxing from chemtrails.
Oh my God. They have a borax video on their YouTube channel, and it has over 500,000 views. So they see that people are interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't found it in the book yet, but I bet it's there. and clothing washers and all that stuff.
There's a couple of comments on the bottom. This guy says from Queensland, I have found a huge, albeit unexpected improvement in my gut since taking borax powder. Pretty much since the day I ran out of tablets and used the cleaning borax, I've noticed this effect. I told my mother about it and she too has had a major gut issues that went away after 20 years. She too has had no issues since taking borax powder daily for, it looks like a couple years now. Abdominal pain and bloating. Wow. This is great.
I thought I saw something about supposedly vaccinated people are shedding viruses. And this is supposed to help.
Potentially, but you know, like
We don't know that.
we don't know anything, so it's better to just, okay. That was earthclinic.com. I'll try to remember to post those on the description. So if anybody's watching the video, you want to send it to somebody. All right, so we got boron done. Go back to the history. Now let's go to boron. Let's just do silica real quick. So there was a tincture I passed around and it had horsetail in it, equisetum. Michael McAvoy gave me this. This company has really strong, this is like a 1 to 5 drop kind of thing. So it's coriander and elecampane, which I love. It's a beautiful flower. We use the root of that. So silica binds aluminum because the Earth's crust is made of aluminosilica. So like today was a virtual cloud of aluminum above us all day. Those weren't clouds in the sky today. That was all sprayed. That was all sprayed about 1,000 miles out, and it comes in as this white cloud of yuckiness.
Well, I stopped where there was children playing baseball, throwing the ball to each other, and all of a sudden this kid's like, wow, I've never seen this before. What the hell is that? It was a big halo around the sun, like the beginning of a rainbow, but circling the sun. I was like, what is this halo?
Chembo. Chembo. I have photos of them. I have all kinds of photos of these.
What is it? Chembo.
Chembo. Instead of a rainbow, a chembo.
Oh, it's a chemical.
Chemtrail rainbow.
They say like when you see it around the moon, it's because it's petroleum-based process, sort of like how oil on the ground has a little bit of a rainbow.
Right.
color.
Right.
It's sad that it's kind of pretty in a weird way, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I was with Stessa last night at sunset, and it was like, from the crow's nest, it was like, I told her, I go, well, you know why it's so pretty, don't you? And then we left it at that.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
It was a very, but it's just like,
Even the kids were, even the kids were like, right.
good, they're waking up.
Yeah.
They're waking up. What you do to get somebody to, once you have this experience, you can never go back. You say, see that plane spray right there? Just watch that for the next 2 hours. And once you watch and see it turn into what I've described, you can't go back because contrails don't do that.
I don't know if I would have believed it, but I was at the point one day just watching these 2 jets just circle and just made,
Oh.
Yeah.
and they weren't just, they weren't like flying through, they just were circling.
That's right.
Creating more and more.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was totally
Well, because we're in the springtime and we have those, like, what was it? Monday, we got that random puffy cloud storm came in. Remember I was telling you about that? Well, they don't want that. That's not scheduled weather
Right.
because they've got the weather tied in with stock market.
Right.
With weather's derivatives. They're called futures derivatives. This started with Enron in the early 90s. So if you have a hedged bet and you control the weather and you have a weather's derivative, you get to make billions of dollars on a hedged bet that you're controlling. See, I have a sinister mind. I know how these motherfuckers work because I would be doing it if I was as evil as they were, you know. I do have that sinister mind, and that's how I can feel and understand when I look up. I felt it before I knew. I had a friend hounding me for years about this. He's a 33rd level Rosicrucian. It's the equivalent of the Freemason, but a little bit better. And he was on me for 10, 11 years. And one day I walked out my front door in 2012 and this jet was, and I just felt it. And that's when I started my research. That's kind of low. And that's definitely not a contrail. Like, never seen anything like that before. Because I'm a sky watcher. Ever since I was a kid, I would lay on the lawn, just watch the sky for hours, you know? And the cloud, there's 11 new clouds in the last 20 years? Clouds don't we're making new clouds. And they're calling these scientific names. the level of brainwash. There's so many layers, you guys. Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to get off of screen share here now. So the silica, the easiest way to get it right now, when I ride my bike, I just want to cry right now. All the straw, the wheat straw, the oat straw, all the weeds you see around the county, if you hack that and dry it and boil that in water, that's your silica and it's free. All your grains and the stalks are high in silica, specifically oat straw though. And I'm riding my bike on the trail over to New Leaf today. I'm just seeing all they're just weed whacking all the oats right now. And if you go and get them soon, you can get the wild milky oat and extract that. And you can also get the stalks, and because you can go buy oat straw and Mountain Rose Herbs, but even the weed straw, you know, the weed, you can dry these crabgrass stuff and boil it up and you're going to get some silica out of it. So it's an important element right now because it also can transmute into calcium. Well, that's why I need to do a screen share. It goes back to that periodic table. So silica is in the same vertical category as calcium. No, carbon, excuse me, carbon. Where'd that page go? Nutrient health charts. I have a bunch of different periodic tables. It's pretty fun to periodic. Whoa, there it is, a photographic. So where is that guy? There's carbon, silica. So it's carbon, silica, germanium, tin, and lead. So if you don't get enough carbon and if you don't get enough silica in your diet, guess what? You could possibly absorb more lead. I've read some interesting thing about oxygenation of the body and germanium also. It's an interesting study. One of these Chinese doctor about 20 years ago, I saw him. He was selling these germanium supplements. Of course, it was the answer for everything with oxygen. And I was rolling my eyes. Oh my God. And tin, what a fascinating, that's fascinating. So silica is element 14 and boiling point is 2,900 Celsius. Wow. Yeah, the melting point is 1414 Celsius. So, you know, silica can be hard like glass, but it can be flexible also. So Bernard Jensen talked about silica quite a bit as it helps you have stamina and it helps you have fortitude. And look at these oat straw where the wind blows through them. They have a lot of fortitude, right? They don't get blown over. So he says it helps with our endurance. So we don't get blown over as easy. We have silica in our diet. So those are the best sources. Our horsetail is growing on the creeks right now. Pauline's usually used to have a bunch of horsetail in that creek that went through their yard, but I think it all died. They had a flood a number of years back. I think the flood kind of ruined it. And then, so anywhere there's a waterway, you'll see nettles, figwort, horsetail right now, mugwort. It's the time. I mean, if you want to, you should probably do an herb walk. And horsetail, you don't want to use it fresh for silica. You want to dry it and boil it. The fresh horsetail has a different use than the dried horsetail. Yeah, but you can use the mild milky oat. You want to get that fresh into a tincture right away. Like you squeeze it and the little white milky stuff comes out. You know, there's an old saying about that, sowing your wild oats. It's a sexual tonic, the wild milky oat. Look, it smells and looks like semen. It does, it smells and looks like semen. Of pure silica. Of pure silica. Yeah, not. Oh yeah. Like 3,000 degrees Celsius. Which is, what is that Fahrenheit? 10,000?
And they make 10 times more than they need. That's absolutely perfectly pure. So they make all this excess and just all waste and completely harming the earth. So they get the perfect stuff for the zillion silicon waste. We're so poisoned by the creation of computers.
We can't win, can we? All right.
The Koch brothers
Silica.
are huge into solar panels right there. You know how.
Yeah. Those guys were dead.
Sad.
Why don't they die?
They don't seem to be the orbits. They seem to be more like
Okay, so silica. There's also my rich food sources of nutrient document also has silica sources, not as high as these other ones. And then finally, iodine. The way to start iodine is to get these other accessory nutrients in. We can do a little newsletter about that. I have an old iodine newsletter I can just republish. I wrote about 4 or 5 years ago. But the easiest way is to get seaweed in your diet is a way to start. And back in 1996, I got wind of all this seaweed stuff. So never even eaten it, not even once in my life. And I proceeded to eat it every day for a month. And guess what happened? Edgewalker. I had diarrhea for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, diarrhea.
And I asked my body, I'm like,
Diarrhea with
why do I have diarrhea? My body said, I don't have the enzymes to process this. I don't even know how to touch this stuff because I've never seen it before. So I kept telling my body, you're going to get it eventually. You're going to get it eventually. And then about day 21, 22, 23, I had a formed bowel movement. And I was like, all right, body finally did it. So be careful, when you start something like that, because it wasn't the iodine that was the problem. It was because seaweed's naturally a laxative. It's a yin tonic. It's a natural yin tonic. And kombu has a natural form of MSG in it. So it helps the flavor of your beans that you cook with it, or whatever you cook with your soup with kombu, which is why I always use kombu in my bone broth, because it just makes everything taste better. Natural form of MSG. Which is a good segue. Why is MSG such a problem? Why is it such a problem? Anybody know?
synthetic.
But it's made of natural stuff. It's made of a natural amino acid.
Oh, okay.
Glutamic acid is an essential amino acid.
But it's a neurotoxin, that.
So the problem is how they make it. Yeah, so you have these 2 glutamate molecules. It's called monosodium glutamate. So one sodium, one sodium molecule, this glutamate thing. And the problem is glutamate, there's an enzyme that breaks it down and turns it into GABA, which is relaxing, but glutamate's stimulating. So on the GABA pathway, you have to have foods with glutamic acid in it. But if you can't break down the glutamic acid, you're screwed. And those are people that feel, when I take MSG, the last time I had it was in San Luis Obispo. I used to go to this Chinese restaurant, and they always assured me they never had MSG. So I had this Mongolian beef one night that I never had before. I still love Mongolian beef. And I went home and it felt like someone was stabbing me with a knife all night long. I didn't sleep that night. My girlfriend and I, she tried to have pity on me, and we tried to have sex, but it just made it worse. So unfortunately, usually sex helps everything, but not in this case. Yeah, too bad, huh? She was trying to distract me from the pain, bless her heart. And so I went to the restaurant in the morning, and the owner said, we don't use MSG. And I said, did you use a canned sauce to make the Mongolian beef? And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. We didn't check the canned sauce ingredients. And there was MSG in the canned sauce.
Italian food too, so careful with Italian restaurants.
You have to ask.
All
You have
Asian,
to ask.
all Mediterranean, you should ask. And you have to ask 2, 3 times. I've had people say, oh no, there isn't. My left foot, I had it 2 nights in a row while I was pregnant. My left foot was swollen for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Oh,
Never went down until I did serious cleansing.
It's one thing that's worth looking into. I have a few physicians that have written books about the glutamate headache. And so they have this food list of all the glutamate. And so your protein powders, one reason why you don't want to take protein powders too often, because the free glutamate in there, or Bragg's liquid aminos is the worst. I'm sorry, Bragg's, Patricia, I love you, but your liquid aminos is a toxic mess. Stopped using that in the late 90s because I had really horrendous underarm odor. So bad my girlfriend wouldn't work out with me. No, this is actually in the early 2000s.
And you figured it was your liquid?
I asked, I inquired to the universe, and I got that back. And so I started looking because the internet was around 2005. And it's like, and all these men were talking about these horrible body odors. So I called them up. I call people up. I called up Bragg's and said, how do you make that stuff? Because you brag about the fact it's not fermented, but shoyu it's been around for thousands of years. And traditional soy sauce takes a year to ferment. I'd rather do that than, so how are you making your liquid aminos, please? And they go, well, they didn't want to tell me. And they finally mentioned the word hydrolysis. And I said, well, hydrolysis implies chemicals. Lysis, hydrolysis, right? So they were kept evading me. And finally I go, give me your manager, man, because you're pissing me off. And I've got a lot of clients and a lot of people that we need to know the truth about how you're making this stuff, because this is bullshit. Because I loved it. It was on everything, rice, veggies,
Yeah.
you know, delicious. It was part of my cooking for a good 10 years. And then the manager gets on the phone and, well, that's a proprietary process. We can't share that with you. I go, dude, I'm getting MSG headaches, and I've got documented instances of people that are having trouble when they take it and they go off of it and they feel better. So, and he hung the phone up on me. Then I said, click, never using them again. Fuck you. So sucks, because Patricia Braggs was a pioneer. Oh, and it just makes me sad that her offspring or whoever's done what they've done, you know? So what they do is the soybean has all the amino acids in it. So they put it through a chemicalized process to separate all those amino acids. But when you do that artificially, the glutamate molecule binds to the sodium, and you end up with MSG as part of the byproduct of this chemical process. They're not trying to make MSG, it's just part of their refining process, because hydrolysis causes this damage to the cells. I was telling Monica earlier and a few people, like, I don't share much about the stuff that I know. You guys get little tips of iceberg stuff, but that's why I get fucked up sometimes. I was fucked up today. Just so much burden comes in. Like, do I really have to see this, God? Yeah, you do. You got to find love even in that. That's my job. So, you know, it's hard seeing this ridiculous corruption when it's so obvious to people like me that have actually looked and studied. Like, really? It's like being gaslighted 24/7. And that's how you drive someone nuts. Keep telling them they're wrong when they know they're right. Like, you know, when your man cheats on you, ladies, and he keeps telling you he didn't, doesn't that drive you crazy? Because you ladies know. You ladies know. That's why I've never cheated on a partner. Because my parents cheated on each other, and I got to see that whole bullshit when I was 12 years old. What a damaging thing to do. Oh my God, it's not worth it. Well, yeah. You just, there's something called devotion, you know? So there's not really any good land sources of iodine. We used to have more iodine on the land, but like I said, it tends to evaporate. So we really need to go to seaweed, and then, but the number one way to load is go to Lugal's iodine. That's 2/3 potassium iodide, 1/3 elemental iodine. That formula has been in use since Dr. Lugal developed it in 1841.
So
That should tell you
something.
something. I make it, but it's hard to get it. You got to get it from Australia. Nobody sells it in the United States. It's illegal. Yeah. So that bottle, like right there, I made those up like 2 years ago, thinking I was going to have a huge sale. But I mean, if you start iodine loading, and you'll see, it's like, oh boy, I got to slow down. Oh, I mean, maybe $5 or $10. You did. I heard the compound pharmacists will still make it for you if they're willing to look the other way, but they're not supposed to. Yeah, because elemental iodine gets made into crack. That's why they don't want to sell it in the United States. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. So remember, some organs in the body want potassium iodide and some want elemental iodine. And Dr. Lugal made this and was having results for 170 years. And then along comes these assholes in their Wolff-Chaikoff study in 1965. That's why Guy Benjamin challenged them, because Lugal's already been used for 120 years, hypo or hyperthyroid conditions. Either one, they were getting great results, using it properly, and you know. So then the Wolff-Chaikoff study came along, and that was part of their whole plan, right? In the 60s, they developed the conspiracy theory through the CIA. They started dumbing us down in full force. TV started stepping up. Fluoride in the water, because they knew the Nazis were having great success with dumbing people down in the concentration camps with sodium fluoride in the water. DDT, Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, you know, she wrote that great piece. You start seeing the birds were dying, right? Well, I don't hear the birds anymore. What the hell? Yeah, lots of clues. Is Lugal's. I had a client come in and they were taking the egotistical, elemental, what was the name of that? Nascent iodine. And it's like the fancy nascent iodine name. And I was like, why are we stirring the boat up? Lugal's has been proven to work because it's ego. these practitioners want to have, I want to have my product because I have an ego and I want to fill it up. Well, it's fine to make money, but you know, like make money on Lugol's, you know, because it works. Standard Process has another product. They bind their iodine to a corn protein called zein, Z-E-I-N, and they call that prolamine iodine. So their prolamine iodine has 3 milligrams of iodine bound to the corn protein, and there's seaweed in with it too. So I kind of like that product. I've been using that, and I've been chicken shit with the Lugol's, to be honest. I've been doing about, I've been getting up to about 10 milligrams, and then we did the cleanse and I stopped my iodine loading, but iodine loading will take some people a year to go into Herxheimer. I was on iodine loading for a year, and then I got the classic Herxheimer from iodine loading is a bromine detox. And you know you have a bromine detox because one woman had yellow stained sheets from it coming out her breasts when she was sleeping at night. She thought her dog was pissing in her bed. And then because they were white sheets, and she's like, ew, what's this yellow stuff? And then she had it measured and it was bromine. I got a cold with fluorescent yellow glow in the dark mucus. It wasn't a cold, it was all the bromine coming out bound into the mucus, and it looked fluorescent yellow. Never seen anything like it.
That's what the iodine is helping to push bromine out, but it can take a year of iodine loading before it happens.
You got to iodine load for 2 years. You got to get to 30 to 50 milligrams and stay there for 2 years consistently.
It's good to get this Herxheimer reaction?
Well, we all got the poison in us. You know?
Because then you know that you expelled the poison.
You can do hair mineral analysis and whatnot, but there's certain things we just can't get information on, you know. I mean, maybe Dan Beelan with thermography or live blood cell analysis or these some out of the way methods. I'm working on some Rife diagnosis right now with my Rife machine. There's all kinds of biofeedback and ways you can diagnose with these scalar technology, and I'm getting excited to start developing that. Because we got to look beyond this, where we're at now. We got to look beyond where we are. We got to start looking at, you know, James was great contribution was we got to look at frequency stuff. And I agree with him. We got to, you know.
But I feel confused. You're saying you're being cautious, even though you're an edge walker, that you don't want the next Herxheimer because that's such a big one before. So it sounded like you just said you're not trying.
I don't want to go into it. I'm in allergy season. Generally, May and June are my traditional allergy season. So I got to be really careful about Herxheimer because my system is generally, this is like a lot of yang energy. And I go into allergy symptoms.
Okay.
So iodine it causes my allergy symptoms to come back because I don't have hay fever anymore. I get you know, on a bad day I might have 20 sneezes, but as a kid I would sneeze 100 times and be in bed for an hour afterwards. That's how bad my allergies were.
Until you had this neon yellow phlegm, and then it was cleared.
No, the allergies were cleared before this occurred. I cured my hay fever by sealing up my leaky gut with comfrey. I went through the standard process allergy protocol, like I described: AC carbamide, AF beta food, hepatrophin PMG, and the comfrey and the gut sealers. And then a few years later, I did the iodine loading. And then my hay fever came back.
Be careful about doing iodine loading then?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be pushing it because you can have low thyroid symptoms. And remember the symptom survey form, section 7A and 7B are thyroid hypersymptoms and thyroid hypo. And I have a handout for this too. So you can monitor like, oh, I'm having the hypothyroid. Basically, hypothyroid is thick skin, slow bowels, puffy, brain fog. Hyperthyroid is thin skin, cuts easy, fast bowels, can't sleep, irritable, bleed easy. I had a client, he had one of my freak show clients, he was diagnosed with Graves' disease. And his TSH dropped to 0.001 and his thyroid hormone went through the roof, and they were going to remove this guy's thyroid and put him on radioactive iodine. And I'd been working with this guy for 2 years. I knew exactly what it was. He was going through mercury detox. He had 8 mercury fillings done by Biles on the same freaking session. I wanted to murder Biles. Removed 8 fillings. Yeah. He should have done 4 and waited a few months and done 4 more, is the way it's generally, but Biles rushed him through. And well, Biles has the biological equipment in the dam, but you can only get so much done with that. So we were measuring his mercury through hair mineral analysis, this guy. And he'd had a spike, and I go, we need to get you on, you know, we need this chelated Iodine now because he had horrible joint pain. And then this happened, and I go, mercury is an excitotoxin. So the mercury had moved from here to here. It was an intermediary step. So we needed to get it down further. So we were doing clay in his gut to move it down.
Mercury balloon as well. I had gotten correctly all the mercury out of my mouth in my 20s, but when I was detoxing at 33 to 36, super long-term detoxing and everything, it kept flaring and blooming. And the guy I was working with didn't figure it out. He kept accusing me of cheating and eating dairy because my body would go through all these things. And I finally was sobbing with him, stop accusing me. I'm not lying. I am not touching any cow dairy. It's not the cow dairy. I don't know what this is. And finally, had this other guy who I kept seeing in the waiting room as well, who kept having these blooms that were extreme because he still had mercury in his mouth. So I'd been free of the mercury for 5-6 years at least, and it was still blooming. It was still coming up. And so we had to go through very specific detox of the mercury that many years after it was out of my body to get clear of it.
What are the symptoms of this bloom you're talking about?
Whatever your body is sensitive to, like my body was super sensitive to cow dairy, so that I was actually sensitive to everything else. I looked like I was allergic to everything except a few kinds of fish, like that you don't usually eat haddock.
And that's become blooming.
Well, no, because I was allergic to everything, I had the symptoms of blooming, which was turned out to be the mercury blooming. I don't know that the other things don't bloom. I just know the mercury bloom is what I
What's the
learned.
symptom you're talking about? Blooming?
So it was that I would suddenly have all this illness as though I was having histamine attacks and whatever else. I was having allergic reactions, thank you, including just super detox sick. I was sick off and on for over 3 years. I got, really, really deep, bad sick. All the old stuff came out, just like Craig was saying, but nobody was telling me to do enemas, so I never saw aliens coming out of my butt. I just saw the stuff coming out other ways. But it was very clear that he was just so furious. He was definitely Asperger's. He was zero bedside manner. He just would say, "You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Everybody lies. They say they're doing a good job." And I'm like, "I'm not lying. Don't tell me I'm lying." But it worked.
We don't need to hear about it.
So it was like
Well, he's asking, so
it was like a tsunami.
So I'm gonna answer your question about the bloom. What organism uses mercury as a shield? Your bloom is a candida and a fungal thing because fungus uses mercury as a shield.
fungus uses mercury.
That's from Ingrid Naiman through live blood cell analysis. She sees the immune cells running away with the fungal hyphae moving through the body with the mercury shield in front.
Wow.
That's what you see as the bloom. It's the fungus using it. The fungus have carried it around like shields. And if you don't get on top of that, so it's still in there because we all got fungus. You got to deal with the hyphae. Remember, you can have the mother in here and the hyphae can go down to the toes and up into the eyes. It literally eats through tissue, the fungal hyphae. And so you have a scaffolding of that in your body. That's why fungus is so hard to beat, because you got the immune system has to tear down all that scaffolding and get it drained out. And that causes congestion in the lymph nodes because it's too much solutes, right, in the fluid stream. So beating fungus is a multifaceted, and the main herb that Ingrid talks about that I would agree with is Guduchi. Guduchi. It's an Ayurvedic herb. I use it with neem for fungal drainage. But Ingrid's the expert. She has a website called moldmisery.com. And she's a vegan with her dogma of that, but she is a brilliant clinician. So we'll give her that. Just do some metabolic typing, Ingrid, and you'll learn about, what people should eat. Not everybody shouldn't be a vegan. I hate the should. Let's get rid of the should. Indirectly through the fungal bound mercury. I would just qualify that. You guys could type it in. I mean, there's probably NCBI PubMed studies on this, the relationship between candida, fungus, and mercury. It's probably in there. Yeah, and then finally to finish off the story, so the guy, the symptoms of hyperthyroid that he had was he would wake up in the middle of the night with nosebleeds. Like he would just wake up with blood coming out of his nose. He would go like this and his skin would cut. He couldn't sleep because his thyroid was causing atrial fibrillation. So his heart rate was 150 to 180 at night. And they put him on Graves, the diagnosis, and they were ready to cut him up. And I said, nope, we're not doing that. So I put him through the protocol. It's done it a few times now. And 3 months later, he was all good. Kept his thyroid intact. This wasn't iodine loading, but it's related to a Herxheimer. So that was the point. This was removing mercury. We were doing a mercury chelation protocol because he had his 8 fillings removed. And so at that point, the mercury that was soluble in his mouth, it gases off. It gases off into the brain tissue, and I can see it in the sclera. So it has to work its way down, right, and out the bowel. The final loop is the portal vein. It's the merry-go-round of the portal vein. That's why you have to have the right kind of fiber to bind the mercury in its final stage and get it out in the poop. I don't know. I have to look at Brownstein's work, but I don't know how much we excrete in the urine. I believe we need to poop it out. We might breathe some out. We might pee some out, but I believe we need to poop it out. But Brownstein's book, what's that called? Iodine, and David Brownstein, MD. He's got the really good book about all this. That's what I studied about 10, 11 years ago. And I have a CD talk on a CD of them talking about, this woman talking about iodine in the importer system. But I'll have to admit, her voice is so irritating of the presenter. It's hard to sit through 2 hours of it. I tried to play with a girlfriend on a long journey, and she made me turn it off after 5 minutes. She's like, that woman's voice is like nails on the chalkboard, you know, so turn it off. So I would smoke pot and listen to it. I would take notes. Yeah, it made it tolerable. I was a little bit, you know, put the shield up.
Sim Porter
SYMPORTER, Sim Porter system. Different, yeah. That's the cell. The Sim Porter thing was the cell, see, the escalator, because iodine's a large molecule. It needs an escort because it has to open up, right? There's a pun for that too, sexually. You know, if the guy's too big, you got to open up.
So I got a question about
Sure.
seaweed with, since Fukushima, I have been a little reluctant to eat it. So what's your take on, does it absorb it in the ocean and then we eat it and then we poop it out, or like, how does that work?
You know, I never stopped eating seaweed when Fukushima happened, and I've been surfing in that ocean for the last 40 years. And so seaweed, through my permaculture studies, seaweed is an ocean remediator. So it takes in the toxic elements in the ocean, processes them, but doesn't retain the elements. It transmutes them. Transmutes them.
They sleep in them.
So you don't have to get yours from the Atlantic to be.
I mean, you don't want to go over to the, what is it, the southern, what is that side of the ocean close to Fukushima? You probably don't want to get your seaweed from there, but,
Right.
you know, but generally
It's
not.
off the west coast here.
Yeah, you're probably fine. You get Atlantic seaweed too. But I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any problems with the fish personally, but I need to do another hair mineral analysis. You can do a hair mineral analysis through me for $45. It's like, but you need to do one and then another one 6 months later to see, is this going up? Is this going down? One lab work, again, it's just one point in time. You have two, you can see like the process occurring. You know, and if you have high hair calcium, that's where you got to start. It's like, because a lot of people have high hair calcium. When was this? Huh.
They dumped a whole bunch of nuclear waste off of Farallon Island, and he would dive down on the waste dumps, and he would like catalog and check the radiation levels. And he said that you would see broken barrels of that. You know, they put the nuclear waste in the barrels, and they poured concrete in them to, you know, seal them. And he said you'd see barrels out there that are all rusted, broken in half. And he said you could see test tubes, you know, laying in the sand and stuff, and fish. The cod swimming around through all that. So that's why the cod has these huge tumors on it.
Did he get tumors too?
Yeah, he was in a danger zone there, wasn't he? Well, I'd heard, you know, it's a downer, but I'd heard that they've been dumping, they were launching nuclear bombs in the Arctic Sea in the 50s and the 60s to test. And underground in Nevada, you know, at that one site, they were dumping them down there too. So what radiation does is I have this theory about radiation is it causes tissue mutation, you know, cell mutation, but what if you could change that mutation for the positive? Think about it. In Chernobyl, you know, all the animals in the trees were back, looked pretty normal to me in some of the documentaries after Chernobyl, you know. So, I got some rockfish right in there, marinated.
Environmental analysis also life extension.
No, it's just through analytical research labs, and I have all the paperwork, so I got all the forms. You take a little hair sample, and there's this cute little, there's a paper teeter-totter. So you cut enough hair until the teeter-totter goes down, and you know you've got enough hair for the lab sample. It's really cute. It's a little piece of paper, and you fold it, and it has a little teeter-totter on the bottom, and okay, I got enough hair. And you want the hair closest to the scalp, right? Because that's the most recent data. You don't want the hair way out here because that's 3 months ago or a year ago.
So you would cut some long hair and cut the part.
And cut the inch, they say take the long hair and cut the inch closest to your scalp and put that in the sample. And pubic hair doesn't quite have the same profile as head hair. Because people use their pubic hair who are bald, and it's like, well, generally the pubic hair has high phosphorus. And so I look at it and I go, what the fuck is this phosphorus? Oh, use pubic hair, that's right.
Do you know why it has phosphorus? Because mammal urine is one of the best sources of phosphorus.
Ah, there we go.
We are good mammals.
Yeah.
You can pay for a cow and other mammals. There we go again.
Right. That's why the plants grow so rapidly, because you get nitrogen in them right now, then they're just gonna, nitrogen encourages vegetative growth. So that's what they're trying to do, is all that stems and leaves and whatnot.
Down in on top of the wood chips, and you pour urine in from the top, and it distributes it through the under the wood chips, so then the roots go down, hit that wood chips, and then they just really take off.
So is that related to Hugo culture? You know Hugo culture? You know about Hugo culture?
Yeah.
I did it a couple of times with a woman. She had an apple orchard up on Empire Grade, and her father had pruned all the, you know, all the orchard. And so she's like, what am I gonna do with all these twigs and rotten apples? And I go, let's do a couple swales right here. Let's put the twigs on the bottom. Let's put the apples on top of the twigs. Let's do mulch and soil on top of that. And then it rained a lot. 3 months later, everything was gone. The malic acid in the apples had dissolved the sticks. We dug it up 3 months later. We were astounded at how fast it transformed. They weren't big, thick sticks, though. They, you know, they were apple prunings, you know, so they were like maybe like that, you know. But there's not very many people that have heard of Hugo culture.
Really?
But that's a variation of it right there.
I know a lot of people that.
In my world, I haven't seen it. I don't go to the permaculture guild stuff either.
Instead of the urine going from the urinals into the sewer, it goes into these tanks, and the farmer comes by once a week and he pumps out the tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, use it for fertilizer.
Yeah, baby. So some of you know Ken Foster, right? I have I was trying to YouTube interviews, so I got Ken at my old house, and we had a couple of talks, and they're on YouTube. And him and I got in this conversation about, we've been brainwashed into thinking that our poop and our pee is waste, but it's not. It's a resource.
Especially.
Yeah, it's a resource. And I love that Ken, you know, because Ken does gray water, and whenever his place, looked at his compost tea, and you can take all your weed trimmings and put them in compost tea, and you can use that in your garden too. You know that, yeah.
Well, we built a two-chamber dry composting privy down at in Sausalito next to Boat Co-op, and we had a little privy on top of it, and when one chamber filled up, we moved it over, and then we would fill in the other chamber, and we put in a handful of wood chips and a handful of kitchen trimmings and a cup of ash into when we take a poop. And we'd fill up this chamber, we'd turn it, we had a big oar, and you
Oh,
like
wow.
turn it over, and it would turn into like this black humus, and it was like
Wow.
incredible fertilizer. You could just put it on the plant would just like explode out of the ground and bear
Kellogg
fruit.
Fertilizer does that too.
What does?
Kellogg Fertilizer. The Kellogg Fertilizer Company does that whole processing. explains it. I went to school with one of the
interesting.
family members, and it was
Huh.
amazing to learn.
Oh, yeah, and it doesn't smell.
No,
Doesn't
and they,
smell.
and they say, just think
Beautiful.
about it. If you make fertilizer from human manure, it's way fewer chemicals than most animal manure
Oh,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
because we eat less. Well, we can eat less.
Right.
I had
So to speak.
a backyard farming business in San Francisco, and we would find they'd call it like as people used to have like an outhouse in their backyard, and they call it night soil or something. But
Yeah,
it
right.
basically where that was, and it's like this incredible black soil, next to all the sandy soil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, my friends up in Last Chance, they've been successfully using human manure for 35 years. And it was my job to just take the barrel, let it sit for a year, and empty out these big barrels. But we only put them on the orchard. But it's amazing to have 2 trees and give one fertilizer, and this one didn't get it. This one would be 5 times
Thriving.
Yeah.
thriving. Yeah,
Wow.
but it's beautiful. It doesn't smell. It's marvelous.
Now you guys know the Human Manure Handbook?
So
It's,
funny.
it's the number
my
2
God.
bestseller.
Is it?
Really?
Wow.
It's a joke.
Oh.
Oh, the number. Ah, you're keeping us sharp.
The book is so funny.
He's great. Isn't he wonderful?
It's absolutely hysterical.
He is wonderful.
Yeah.
And he showed- so-
scatology jokes.
The data is, he tested all of this and he said, no matter how bad you do the human manure, if you wait a year, there are no pathogens left.
Yeah.
None.
So you could put it on your plants at that point, but they're just being cautious is all.
Yeah.
Like, I was in a place
A resource.
in Australia where they let it ferment or something, sit for 3 months, and then they put it on the garden. But the
Hmm.
food tasted like poop.
Ew!
I know. There was something very wrong about that. I
That's
think
very wrong.
That is very wrong.
Years
That's
ago.
definitely.
Yeah.
Wow.
The final thing to this, and this mysteries of the universe, I've mentioned this a few times, is I just get so mad when I see these humic and fulvic acid supplements. I just want to cringe because properly composted food puts humic and fulvic acid it's the bug poop. And so if you're eating food grown on compost with compost on it, you're getting humic and fulvic acid. And if you want to get a cheap way, go get Shilajit that I've been talking about. That's all the trees and all the stuff on the Himalayas, 20,000 feet up, working their way down as they rot through the rocks. And then at the bottom of those mountains is this black mineral pitch. And I've got gallons of it over there. I bought a wholesale order because that's your concentrated humic and fulvic acid that's been made by nature, not some asshole's ego. It's back to this ego stuff, you know. The best probiotic is sauerkraut. Why? Because nature made it. Not some guy going, oh, I think lactobacillus longum and lactobacillus and bifidobacteria this, and because my ego is number 1 and I have the number 1 probiotic because I'm the number 1 guy.
Yeah.
I have tons of it. It's from the Russian mountains. They call it momijo. M-U-M-I-J-O, momijo. I was looking for it on eBay and I was like, momijo, Shilajit, what? And so I emailed the lady and we talked and she said, oh yeah, it's the same purity, but you can get it for half the price. And I was like, great.
But you were working on how to be a chef with it, right? To try to make it be good.
I have it now. I mixed it with, I had barley grass and a bunch of herbal powders. So I mixed the Shilajit in and I have this product in my freezer now called Shilajit and Greens.
Right.
I'm putting it in my
Still wasn't
smoothies.
super tasty, but if you put it in smoothies,
You put a teaspoon or 2 in your smoothie, you can't even taste it. But Shilajit tastes like dirt. I mean, it does. It's not pleasant.
like
You only need a toothpick. The
Dirt
head of a
pudding.
toothpick is how much you need. So you don't need a whole lot. Because it will generate a Herxheimer if you do too much of it too. And I did that long ago, you know, Edgewalker stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do a teaspoon. I'm going to do a toothpick head, you know. Because I was an excessive guy. You know.
Yeah.
Was, am, always will be.
Well, he's cautious now. He's cautious about Shilajit then.
Well, they say you grow into your, what do you grow into your ascendant or do you grow into your north node? What is it you grow into? If you're sun sign, you grow into your ascendant?
Yeah. Probably, yeah. I think the ascendant is what's coming. Yeah, descendant is, I don't know.
Your rising sign, you grow into your rising sign. I got to ask Carl that. Because I'm a Cancer rising, so it probably makes me a little more emotional as I've gotten older. My mother was an Aries sun and she had a Cancer ascendant. So she's way mellowed out. Way mellowed out. She's gotten older. Yeah, bless mom. Mother's Day is coming up. May 9th.
Oh.
And that's a tough birthday because you're fighting your mom. He's got his birthday on his mom day. How do you do that in your family? Have mom and you celebrated? Leave town. I had a girlfriend that was born on Christmas Day. Can you imagine being born on Christmas Day? What a bummer. That's smart to do it before Christmas too, because you get celebrated before it with the festive attitude,
Yeah,
right?
you throw up all the astrologers because they think you're a Sag. When you're That's funny.
Oh my God. That's so smart. Yeah. That's good subterfuge.
Anytime within a month of Christmas sucks. That was December 2nd, and it was never my birthday.
And my brother's January 8th, you know, which is also Elvis's birthday. So we always reminded him of that. Yeah. I didn't change it. I swear. I'm a May Day boy. Beltane boy. Remember the first word out of my mouth, or the first word I ever wrote was tit. So, you know.
The sexual innuendo jokes.
And all the sexual innuendo jokes. Beltane boy.
Beltane is.
It's the pagan name for the day, the celebration. If you want to read, I think one of my favorite accounts of it's in the Myths of Avalon.
Yeah, awesome.
Marion Zimmer Bradley does a great job portraying Beltane. Oh my God.
In multiple ways.
Oh my God. It's such a great book.
It's an amazing book.
Oh, I agree. Because it's told from the female perspective. Yeah, it's the female perspective. So, you know, Morgaine was like talking versus Arthur, because Arthur, according to her, sold everybody out to the Christians, you know. Yeah, and he, boy, that was, it's such a, oh, it's such a great book. I don't read it again, 5th time through, you know.
It feels like history. I dreamt about it every night.
It feels like history to me too. It felt like she was drawing, well, she said in her research, she did do some historical, you know, but you couldn't,
And then she channeled.
yeah, she couldn't, you can't call it fact.
But it's so right.
It feels so right to me, especially when they brought in the Grail, the Holy Grail came in and everyone went nuts, you know, like that was really cool. And that fits in with, what was that? The island, well, there's Avalon, but what's the island actually in our world? No, it's the famous churches there on the island. The bells of, so the mist, what they would do is they would summon the mist, and Avalon was in a parallel universe on the same land of this island this big church was at. And there's a lot of legend in the, you know who talked about this was Holy Blood, Holy Grail, those 3 reporters. They got some tips and they figured that maybe the Grail made its way up to Britain. No, it's Gloucester or something like that. So the Da Vinci Code was based on Holy Blood, Holy Grail. That's right. Yeah, Dan Brown went and talked to those British reporters that were fed this information from the Freemasons. And, you know, they were skeptical because
Yes,
Glastonbury, very good. Glastonbury, very good. And so the church there, that as Zimmer Bradley portrays it, is if you were trained well enough, you could summon the mist, and then you would go into the mist, and then you would go to Avalon instead of Glastonbury.
Yeah, and if you go to the Glastonbury tour, there are ways to see that that's a way to understand Avalon as well. Oh, very cool.
Aren't there stones there? Like Stonehenge? Isn't there like stones there on Glastonbury? I thought there was. There's so many mysteries that we're just not privy to, right? And that's one of them. I think we're done. It's been well over an hour and a half. Any questions I want you on film? I didn't go through the 4 foundations. I had this idea to go through. I'm going to be gone next week. So whoever wants to lead next week's great. We'll still have a thing here. Yeah, I mean, Gene and everybody will be here, and you guys can still meet, and I'm sure Jean will want to meet. Okay, here it is. Birth and death. So, birthday makes me think about sort of rewind. And so we can do some stuff on community dinners where we talk about the needs as you age. Because your birthday, reminds you of you're born, and your needs as an infant are much different than your needs as an old person. Like sodium is almost forbidden for children. You don't want to give kids a lot of salt. But as you get older, you need the sodium to feed your adrenals. Right. And so you want more of a potassium-rich diet in the child. And you do not want to feed children simple sugars. Because if you do that too early, then they crave the simple sugar versus the veggies. So what I was taught is you feed kids starch, like rice, and then maybe you don't do carrots before rice, right? You do rice first because it's more bland. Then you go to carrots, and then you might do fruit after that.
Oh, why would you do rice? Grains are terrible.
I had some great macrobiotic teachers, and they had ways of doing the congees and feeding the children. Their main breast milk substitute was sesame seeds and rices, and you make this big rice milk thing with sesame seeds and whatnot, and they're having great results with it. But they were preparing it and soaking it properly too. Remember the tribal peoples, they would soak grain until it got sour, and then it's not a grain anymore. It's a ferment. And so the carbohydrates being eaten by the bugs. And what are bugs? Protein. So when you ferment your grains and your beans, you're getting more protein and less carbohydrate because the bugs have eaten the carbohydrates. That's what the sour is. It doesn't taste good. I mean, I've soured millet, I've soured rice, I've soured all kinds of stuff, and it's just god awful. So you just hook it for maybe one day and happy medium. Burlmutter wrote Grain Brain, and my theory on grains is that we don't store grains well, and the problem we have with grains is due to mold toxins. It's not because of the grain itself. Look at American wheat versus European wheat, for example. I have lots of gluten people that go to Europe, and they do fine with the wheat over there. What does that say about our wheat, the way it's grown and the way it's stored? So I'm not anti-grain. I'm just contextualized for the right person grain, blood type A's, metabolic type carb types, living in a tropical climate, there's definitely a person that grains work for, and children generally.
Rice and row crop corn and stuff like that. And the farmer had a big silo that got filled up with moldy. And instead of throwing it all away, he would incorporate small batches of that in every process. So but they keep it low enough that it'd be below the numbers for what was acceptable. But he just didn't want to lose the hundreds of thousands of dollars that were in that silo.
Wow.
And how many people are doing that sort of thing?
Other
Right?
weird stuff too, like a hydraulic hose broke on a forklift and sprayed hydraulic fluid into it.
Oh.
So they sold that as conventional.
Oh, wow.
How do we know this doesn't happen in Europe, though? How do we know that it's not moldy in Europe?
Well, I'm just saying, I have at least 50 people that can't do grains or wheat, and they go over to Europe and they tolerate it just fine. Was this in Europe? Was this in Britain?
No, it's north of Sacramento.
Oh, so it's here. Glyphosate for sure. Yeah, for sure glyphosate here. And that's the scary thing about that messenger RNA thing, is there's this whole prion thing with this new vaccine.
We sell wheat, and the wheat basically we'd have to sell it as animal feed if the protein wasn't high enough, because American bread companies like use machines to make bread. Right. It has to have really high protein levels.
And that's part of the problem with our gluten, because gluten, think gluten. It's like glue. And you know what sucks is there's one of those breads, the Alvarado Street Bakery, they advertise this grainless bread, and they add wheat gluten powder to the frickin' bread. Fuck you, Alvarado Street. They're doing it too now?
Well, I don't know what they add, but it's a little bit at the end.
They add wheat gluten too. The Ezekiel sprouted grain bread. Because it's not a flour technically, even though it's ground up. The Food for Life Ezekiel breads, you know, they have the sprouted green stuff, which it's a good transition bread generally, but you know, I'm glad we're going through this actually. Any amount is going to trigger people because the gluten standards are less than 10 parts per million. So they better be less than 10 parts per million, right? I used to make seitan, which is wheat gluten. You take wheat flour, you add water to it, and you alternate hot and cold rinses, and you end up with this thing that looks like a brain. So all the starch has been rinsed out, and you can make a gravy with that. You generally save it in a bowl. You make gravy with that. I did this hundreds of times at the Macrobiotic Institute in '96 when I was a vegan. And now I know why my gut was so messed up. Because you could make it like steak. You could saute it and make beef stroganoff with it, and soy sauce and onions and salt and pepper and garlic, you know, and little noodles. And we thought we were king, you know, high in protein. Yeah, I mean, I was totally anti-meat at the time, even though I was craving a bloody burger and then justifying it with the seitan. Yeah. Finally, I had a teacher that goes, dude, start eating meat. You're craving a bloody burger and justifying this over here, and you're killing yourself. Look at you, got gas and bloated, and you're 155 pounds, and you need to weigh 175, and you can't eat enough food. And I'm back to meat and dairy, and my whole life went back up 500% better, you know. But that's my diet, see? For someone else, meat and dairy would be out of the question, you know. Yeah, it's my natural flow. Type O, mostly Northern European ancestry, and metabolic type high C answer. I have one saving grace, which is I have 1/8 Portuguese from a Portuguese ancestor. So there's a little bit of that Latin fire in Craig. I call him Goyo, G-O-Y-O. Goyo is my Latin guy. He's my id, so watch out for Goyo. Because Goyo doesn't care. He's very uninhibited. That was the tit guy, probably. Great questions. Any more?
Does anybody want to try closing the flower?
Okay, well, I'm going to end this recording now. Goodbye, folks.